Hi everyone, welcome to Andrew's Quest, and I feel the need today to explain why I chose the name Andrew's Quest. The first part of the name is Andrew's. Andrew. That's me. My name is Andrew, if you haven't gathered. Quest. So, I'm a huge fan of video games, fantasy genre, a little bit of sci-fi genre, reading, so like Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings. I read a lot of books. The classic stuff, like all those classic literature books like Tom Sawyer, all that, but that's not the point. I'm not going to blab on about what I've read. Sticking to the fantasy genre, I read a lot of fantasy. A common element I like in fantasy is magic. That has nothing to do with this Andrew's Quest name. Just feel the need to point it out. But, so anyway, the fantasy genre, video games specifically, are my inspiration for the name Andrew's Quest. Why? Because most video games, typically, you take on a character that's going on a quest. In most fantasy stories, whether it's directly stated that it's a quest, it's a development, it's a quest. It ends up being a quest somehow, some way. Now, for me, I used to play a lot of role-playing style video games where you take on a character, whether you choose what the character is or how it looks like or what it does, or if it's a set character. Regardless of the situation, my favorite ones are the ones where it's a role-playing game and you get a character in the beginning of the game and he's not so strong. He's not, he or she, sorry, is not strong. They don't know all the abilities, all the skills. You find yourself fighting the monsters or whatever, and you're constantly having to go to heal yourself. I'm not gonna explain how these games work, but it's a struggle. Like, it's actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it's a struggle starting out as a character in a role-playing game, because you go out there, and even though the monsters are weaker in the beginning than they are at the end of the game, the ones in the beginning are still very challenging to you, to the point, because you don't have the resources, you don't have the experience level, you don't have the skills to deal with it as efficiently or effectively. So you're constantly having to settle back, heal yourself as your character, go back out again, and it's called grinding. If anyone doesn't play these kind of games, it's called grinding for experience. So these games, you usually get experience, and then you increase in your level, your skill level, and you get stronger. What do we call the struggle for success in real life? We call it the grind, right? Even people that aren't striving for success, the grind just to maintain their life, pay their bills, etc., work, it's the grind. So people probably think, why the hell would you like those games if, like, you're just doing the grind? Well, it's the result of the grind is that you end up getting stronger as a character, and you go out there and you freaking throw a fireball or whatever, or like a massive ball of ice that explodes into like millions of shots, whatever. Or you summon like a demon. Anyway, you get the point. I like the fantasy, and I like the result of the grind from the fantasy, those games. Two problems with that was hundreds of hours. Anyone who plays these kinds of games understands. But then I started to realize another thing. Later in my life, obviously, because if I had realized it earlier, or if I had acted on it earlier, I would have, this quest maybe would have been started years ago. Playing these games, I stopped playing video games in general maybe a year ago. I played like app games on like Clash of Clans and that kind of Clash Royale, those kind of things. And then on and off, and then I stopped entirely like 2-3 months ago. But that's whatever. So before I stopped playing, or as I was getting to the stopping of the playing, I've been playing all these, like, especially the RPG style ones, and leveling up these characters and this and that, and looking at the time for each character. One character in like Diablo 3, I remember I had like 150 hours for a freaking stupid game that didn't get well received. If you know anything about Diablo, that they had to redo the whole game, so essentially your character got lost anyway. And my point was this: why am I spending all this time? Not on that character specifically, but why am I spending all this time on these games? Let me, before anybody goes crazy, I still like video games, and people have made careers out of video games, especially at this day and age, and I appreciate that. And I'm not saying that there's no value in video games, because that's a side note, but there is a lot of value in playing video games. However, we spend too much time in them. So let me get back to my thought to myself. Why am I spending so much time playing these games, growing these characters, like digital character that's just literally a piece of data with a representation on a screen that the company could shut the server down and it's gone, for example, or whatever. Even if I become the best in the world with that character, which I never came even close, right? This character is super strong, kills all the monsters and whatever, makes all the gold in the game. What did that do for me, Andrew? What did it do for Andrew? Nothing. Basically the inspiration came from that. So it's like I can do this process repeatedly through my life in video games with new characters starting and getting up there. And not just role-playing games, like any kind of game. Like you start bad and you get better at it. Call of Duty, etc., right? Unless you really suck. I don't know. But sorry to everyone who's not really a gamer. I'm just like, this is from my perspective, my paradigm. But so I started trying to translate the elements of the video games, the role-playing games, into my real life. And I'm like, okay, like that gave me a framework of, since I enjoy playing video games so much, maybe I can mentally make my life, the elements of the role-playing, the video game characters, make that in my life, my growth, my experience, my grinding, my leveling up. Now, I don't actually sit down and make stats for myself. There are actually apps and and websites that do that. I don't do that. I just have that mental almost mindset. Not that I'm like some character in a medieval time, no, I just have the mindset that it's like I just relate it to that to make it more entertaining for myself. And sometimes I joke. I had a friend one time I work with. we were playing soccer and he said something like he scored a goal. He's like, "Oh, my shooting's level 2 now," or something like that. It's funny if you're like a gamer again, but so it's like I even joke sometimes when I do get better at, or notice getting better at something. It's like, "Oh, I leveled up," whatever. This is like no one will hear me ever say it, but it's my own little joke for myself. And yeah, so the nerd in me made this name The Quest as a result of that. It's not, again, maybe I might get someone to draw it out for me as like a little gimmick, but I don't take stats like that. I don't level up, but I have that mentality of like, oh, and on the same note, when I start feeling like, oh, maybe this is like the pain, the devil voice kicks in or whatever, I do go back to the mindset of like, okay, so then just go level up a character and like make him rich or make him successful, rich or powerful, and you could just sit as the nerd on the computer and do nothing. And that's how I like talk myself back out of it, because it was getting to a point where it's like I'm playing and I'm like not even enjoying it anymore. So that's a little insight to Andrew, and that's why the name Andrew's Quest happened, because of my passion for the video games and the fantasy genre, making it a quest. I typically I typically make things more grandiose than they are, like my I'm not gonna give some real examples, but I always refer to things in excess, like if I'm just going for coffee, I might say, oh, we're having a board of directors meeting with my friends, and it's like there's no business. It's just it's a joke. It's like that's my little. Anyway, try it. So I make things more grandiose than they are, but this is actually my quest. So my inspiration was the fantasy genre. I said it like 12 times now. Video games, role-playing games, all that. And I'm gonna go further in depth on the whole role-playing game influence and how I applied it to my life in another video. Boom, under 10 minutes. Have a great day. Let's keep growing together, guys. Thanks for joining the quest.